to another episode of Unboxing the Birmingham Museum. I'm your host, Caitlin Donnelly, and each week I go into another storage location here at the Birmingham Museum, and we open up random boxes. Why? Why not? We have thousands upon thousands of artifacts here at the museum, and not one person that works here has seen or unboxed all of them. We have several decades of volunteers and staff members collecting things, storing them, and you know what? We can all learn something, me especially, through going into random places at the museum here and just opening up random boxes, and plus it's really fun. I mean, that's the biggest part of Christmas, right? Sometimes it's not the gifts itself, sometimes it's being able to open things up. So I'm here in the basement of the Allen House, and this is where we have a lot of our object storage. And I'm standing in front of a set of 3 filing cabinets. Well, not really filing cabinets, they're like metal cabinets here in the middle of the basement, and this is where we store a lot of our bottles and fine china and other things that, need to be handled with a little bit of care. They can't just be thrown on any given shelf. So I'm standing in the middle right now. This is the middle cabinet, and this is actually one of our least populated cabinets. I'll show you the other two. They're jam-packed with things. This one, we still have some space to store new things, luckily, because we're still getting things donated into the museum pretty much at least once a month. We have new items coming in, so it's really awesome. And if you've been following us for a little while, you know about one of the things that we got last year is this bottle for beef, iron, and wine. And this was a common medicine all throughout 1800s, 1900s. Even today, you can still buy this. And it is to help with anemia. So the beef and iron would help get your blood levels up. I'm not sure what the wine is supposed to do, but it probably makes you feel pretty good while you're taking your medicine. And what makes this really significant is at the bottom of the label here, we have prepared by Charles Shane for his Birmingham, Michigan pharmacy. So Shane's Pharmacy was a pharmacy that was in Birmingham for, well over 50 years. Charles Shane was a friend of Martha Baldwin. His mom and Martha Baldwin were best friends, and Martha actually helped pay for him to go to school at what is today Ferris State and get his degree in pharmacology, so he could come back, and then she helped him secure buy the building that his pharmacy was in. And a couple weeks ago we had Ethel Bassett Day, and Ethel Bassett was the first registered female pharmacist in Oakland County. She worked in Shane's Pharmacy for over 50 years and actually co-owned the business for many of those years. She walked into Shane's Pharmacy in 1912 as a 19-year-old girl, looking for a summer job and not thinking that she had found her vocation, had found her calling, but she did. So Shane's Pharmacy holds a special place in our hearts here at the museum, and probably for a lot of you Birminghamsters watching from home as well. So that's really, really cool, and we did narrow down the date based on, you can find things like, what does the bottle look like? Does it have any indentations? Does it have the alcohol percentage on it? And from there you can kind of start narrowing down the years that was probably produced. And I'm probably going to get this wrong, but I think we determined that it was around 1917. But I'm going to double check, and if I'm wrong, I'll put a correction here. And so this is another bottle that we got within the last couple of years, actually. So whenever they repave or excavate anywhere around Birmingham, we try to work it out with the company doing it, with the city. that if they find any artifacts, they'll bring them to the museum, and we can kind of call dibs on them. And this is one of the bottles that has come in over the years. So really, really cool that. We got this beautiful blue bottle for Milk of Magnesia. And it says the Chas H. Phillips Chemical Company out of Glenbrook, Connecticut. And it has the trademark there. So fantastic piece. And of course, I mean, bottles can tell you a lot about the people that lived here before. Just as, you know, sometimes if you're at a stop sign and you look over at the ground and there's litter, people in the past littered too. And so we can tell a lot of, you know, what kind of pop were people drinking, that, you know, maybe they just were walking out of the Birmingham theater in the 1940s and, you know, they throw their bottle of Faygo or whatever they were drinking in the street. It gets covered by dirt, and then we repave Woodward Avenue, you know, 80 years later, we re-find it. So, and also, like, what sort of medicines were people in Birmingham taking at that time? What sort of ailments did they have? You know, it can tell us a lot, and it's pretty cool to imagine that, you know, people back then were pretty much the same as we are today. You know, they had medical ailments. They had a favorite brand of pop that they were drinking. And, you know, they were also very, very lazy about finding a trash can. Something that irked Martha Baldwin to no end, but here we are. And something else cool that we have in here is a sign for a restaurant that you might be familiar with. And this is a sign for Albans Restaurant. I don't think you can really see it. I'll put a close-up in editing. But yeah, so this was from Albans Restaurant, and it's really, really cool. We've been able to help people. We had a gentleman come in a couple years ago, and he and his wife were celebrating an anniversary, and they had their first date at Albans. And of course, Albans isn't around anymore, so he was wondering if we had anything that, you know, he could take to this anniversary dinner to kind of remind his wife of their first date. And we had a copy of the restaurant menu from around the same time that they happened to be dating at that time. So we were able to reprint it for him, and he and his wife were very, very happy with it. So, you know, if you're planning something special, let us know. We might be able to help you. And then down here we do have some silver goblets and pitchers and things from the Peabody family. So this was actually from Lyman Peabody and his wife's 25th wedding anniversary. They received these items. And so this is like a teapot, I'm pretty sure. And what is really, really cool is, you know, you don't think of Americans as going gaga over tea, but in the late 1800s, Lyman and Sons grocery store, they were one of the first in the area to import tea from Japan. And it caused a sensation here in Birmingham. People were lining up outside the store to look at the tea packages. Lyman had the invoice. He had the invoice displayed so that people could, you know, marvel over the Japanese writing. You know, this was right when the West was kind of forcing Japan to reopen to the West. So people hadn't seen this before. And so not only were they buying the tea to impress their guests, they were just marveling over the packaging, you know, because it was something that most people had never seen before. You know, nowadays, we kind of take for granted seeing, you know, different systems of writing from all over the world. I can go on Google and pull up, you know, examples of Japanese writing if I want to take a gander. But back in the 1800s, that wasn't so. My apologies, our lighting down here is motion activated, and the sensors can't see me where I'm standing. So sorry about that mini blackout. So that's everything that I wanted to show you in this cabinet. And unfortunately, we don't have any boxes to open up. So I'm standing in front of the third cabinet, and this, as you can see, is kind of jam-packed full of things. We have a lot of glass bottles up here, and a lot of these were found during the Woodward reconstruction project that happened about a year and a half ago. It seems like forever. Time seems to not have any meaning right now in 2020, but there was once a time where it did. And then we have some glass artifacts, and this is also from the Peabody family. And these were actually used in the Ford Peabody Mansion, which is now still at the corner of Brown Street, and it's now a Japanese restaurant. So pretty cool stuff. All right, so I will put in a couple more photos of things that we have in these cabinets, but even though these weren't boxes, I wanted to open them up because I think it's just really cool. Sometimes the things that we used to eat are so personal and they're so everyday that we don't even think about it. You know, if you're drinking a Coke right now, you probably haven't thought about how much historians and archaeologists in the future are going to get so excited when, you know, they go through a trash pile from the year 2020 and they find a Coke bottle. And, you know, maybe the research will bear out that we all drank a lot more Coke during this time than in previous times. Or maybe we're all cutting back on the caffeine. Who knows? But, so yeah, just realize that in the future, somebody is going to find your trash really exciting. Just as we here at the Birmingham Museum, we find trash from previous decades really exciting, as well as things like cut glass dinnerware that people have preserved. And, you know, maybe they just had this on the sideboard, they brought it out for nicer meals, didn't think much of it, but we love it here at the Birmingham Museum. So thank you so much for joining me on this journey this week, and come back next week when we'll go to another area, probably still in the basement here at the Allen House. It's a big basement. We've got a lot of stuff. And we will open up random boxes or take a look in some of our spooky closets down here because they're kind of my favorite. So thank you so much, and we'll see you next week. Bye.